Okay, I wanted to do another video, kind of a tour around the Nevada test site. So I'm starting here in Desert Rock, and you can see there is an airstrip here. In real life, unfortunately, it's not modeled in DCS. But you can see there's a little town here, which is actually which was a camp called Camp Desert Rock, and it was part of basically to house troops for the Desert Rock exercises, which were exercises based around troop movements during or on the so-called nuclear battlefield. I believe it was 5 different exercises total. So if you've seen those old videos where you see a nuke go off and you see our troops climb out of the trenches and start running towards it, that's basically what those exercises were. So the airfield here was actually built in 1962 for a visit from JFK. Unfortunately, it's not in here. Hopefully ED will add it at some point. It's kind of hard to see this low to the ground, but it's basically this kind of line I'm flying here. And this is the camp. I believe the camp was basically disbanded in 1964. Next, we're going to keep driving up the road here, and the town in the distance is known as Mercury, and it's a closed city. So we are actually within the Nevada test site, so no public access allowed other than some select tours. I believe they do a tour once a month. And this town was set up basically as a town for the workers who were testing nuclear weapons, or designing, testing, that kind of thing. At one point the population was over 10,000, and in '92 then President George Bush signed the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, which ended all nuclear testing. And now the town, the last known census was about 500, so it still exists, but it's very small. Okay, the next thing we're going to check out is the DAF, or DAF, which stands for Device Assembly Facility. It was built in the 80s as a place to consolidate the assembly of nuclear weapons on the site. Unfortunately, it's not modeled. I just placed those facilities there so you can kind of get the idea, but in real life it's a very low profile structure that's mostly buried underground. It consists of separate steel chambers, and in '92, once we stopped nuclear testing, it's obviously been repurposed for other things. If you've heard about the, I'm trying to remember what it's called, but the drive that that NASA is planning to build or to test that would be used for potential flight to Mars is going to be supposedly assembled and tested or in the device assembly facility. It is not part of the test site tour. You can see it, but you obviously can't go inside. So we're going to continue to Yakka Flat, which is of course the most recognizable part of the test site, being that it's flat and it's covered with craters. And we're going to take a bit of a detour to the east here. Now ahead is a relatively new airfield. I believe it was built within the last 10 years. There's not a whole lot known about it other than it's for testing drones. I believe one of the rumors is the drones it's testing here have equipment for detecting radiation, which I guess would make sense considering the location. Be a good place to test that. It's not really modeled. The dirt is just kind of painted gray. And there's a few buildings here. But it is sort of represented. And I placed a drone there just because. So out to my left here are two houses that still remain. I believe these were from the Apple II test. If you've seen the videos, you know, the old school 50s videos of the so-called typical American home, and you'll see them just completely destroyed by the nuclear blast, and you see some of them where they weren't destroyed, where you see the mannequins inside flying around after the windows get blown out and everything. These are two houses that survived. I believe they were about 1.5 to 2 miles from a 29 kiloton device that was detonated at 500 feet above the surface. One of these houses is still, you can visit it on the Nevada test site tour. ED didn't model them. I just placed a couple houses here to kind of represent them. But if you look up a picture of the Apple II test houses, you'll clearly see what I'm talking about. You've seen them in the old movies before. This one up here is the one that you can visit. You see they have a dirt road right to it. Continuing on, just a couple more points of interest. So we're approaching the site for the project that was going to be shot Icecap. You can see there's a tower here. ED represented it using the solar tower from the Groom Lake facility, but it basically shows you the site as it sits today. It was almost our last test in '92 when the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty was signed. This device was scheduled to be lowered down the shaft just a few hours after. So everything still remains here. It was never tested, obviously, because of the treaty. In real life, it looks like some sort of concrete tower, which obviously held all the cable and the winching stuff to lower a device underground. ED put buildings here. In actuality, these are semi-trailers that are parked here, and they held equipment that would be for monitoring the test. And all this is still here. You can see it on Google Earth. You can also see it as part of the Nevada test site tour. many of you are probably familiar with Sedan Crater. It's the largest crater you'll find here. It was actually a experiment to see what the earth-moving capabilities of nuclear weapons could be, you know, for building canals, that kind of thing. It was a 104 kiloton device, buried 600 feet, and it produced a crater that is a quarter-mile wide and about 300 feet deep. It doesn't look quite as impressive in game as it does in pictures. There's actually an observation deck for it, and it is part of the tour of the Nevada test site. And one more thing to show over here in relation to Groom Lake. Up ahead is what's known as Station 700. It's the entrance, the western entrance to the Groom Lake complex. So this is where most shipments enter Groom Lake. You can see ED did model a guard shack here. So when a semi enters the Nevada test site, you have no idea if it's related to the test site or if it's going to Groom Lake. So it's the most direct route from Las Vegas for the different contractors. So that's most likely why they use this gate here. You can actually find a couple pictures that were taken illegally from the Sedan Crater area. If you take the tour of the Nevada test site, obviously no phones, cameras, anything like that are allowed. And I'll go over the map of this area and switch to a different spot. So this is where we started out. This is the device assembly facility. And just so you can get your bearings, this is Mercury. Creech is over here. The main highway runs down here. This is the secret drone airfield here. These are the two Apple II houses. This is the location of Project Icecap. This is, of course, Sedan Crater and Station 700. So you can see that leads right into Groom Lake here. And this portion here is the shipping and receiving center of Groom Lake. So you'll see all sorts of containers and semis and stuff parked here if you look at Google Earth. Alright, I'm going to choose a different slot. Okay. So this is known as the Jasper project. It's not super well detailed here. There's no buildings. I had to place them here manually. Obviously that one moved when it shouldn't have. This is a light gas gun that they use to shoot projectiles at very high velocities into plutonium samples. And that is used for information regarding our nuclear stockpile and making sure our weapons are safe and functional, since we can no longer test them, obviously, since 1992. So yeah, there's no buildings placed here. I just placed kind of a shelter there to show where they do their tests. Next we're going to fly to Area 25, which was home of the Nerva test, or Nerva project, which was basically a nuclear rocket engine that was tested. So this area is somewhat modeled. Obviously not after the real thing, just kind of random buildings and stuff, but I believe this portion here would be where they did the assembly of the Nerva rockets. And there's the dirt road on the right is actually railroad tracks, and they were transported via remote control locomotives to the test pads. These engines, I guess, created a lot of radioactive fallout, basically, I guess is what you'd call it, and contaminated this area pretty good. So the first kind of area I'm approaching, I believe, is one of the test sites. And they had a second one further up, from what I can gather anyways. By no means an expert on any of this. And I placed a locomotive there just kind of for effect. But this would be where the other test cell was, basically, for the engines. And this facility here, this was where the Nerva tests were done. That's N-E-R-V-A. I can't remember what the acronym stood for. And this is where the Jasper facility is. A couple more things I wanted to show. So last time I showed the eastern entrance to Groom Lake. I talked about this entrance, the north gate here, but didn't show it. And there's also another kind of interesting thing up here I want to show. Okay, so this is just kind of show the north gate of entrance into Groom Lake. So this is coming from Rachel, and unlike the other gates, this one you can drive all the way up to the gate before you have to turn away. There isn't a sign some distance before, so you can drive right up to it, and you'll see they have cameras and sensors and all that stuff outside. Obviously there are no soldiers in Humvees. It's private contractors and Ford Raptors, stuff like that. So this is the north gate into Groom Lake. And you can see that's from Rachel over here off highway, I believe that's 375. There's also another entrance. There's no gate here, but there's a sign, and you obviously don't want to cross it. Right about here somewhere. And this is the last thing I wanted to show. So this is known as Cedar Gate, because it's right near Cedar Peak. And you can see there's a road that runs left to right here. They have a fence up here, and there's signs, so you can't cross right here. So again, it's set back from where the actual guard shack is. And the guard shack is further up ahead. Again, not modeled. I just set down a roadblock with a Humvee to kind of show it. And this gate doesn't really go to Groom Lake or the test site. It's more of just the Nellis range in general, or the Tonopah testing range further to the west. But what's interesting over here is we have a dirt airfield called Kino, and it's used for cargo pilots as a practice landing strip for landing on unpaved surfaces. So it's just a dirt airstrip. You get C-17s and C-130s mainly that land out here. And they also drop paratroopers out here as well. And since it is just in real life a dirt airfield, I guess you could say it's basically modeled because it's defined into the textures here. And I placed a few C-17s and a C-130. And you can find some videos and pictures of the crews doing landings and takeoffs here, and also dropping off paratroopers. And again, so this area, this is where this is. And this is the gate, and this is the fence for the border. And again, this is also off of Highway 375. This entrance is further north than Rachel. This is the north gate entrance to Groom Lake here. You can see we're not far from Tonopah. And I believe this is kind of one of the areas where they also set up different SAM sites and stuff for the pilots. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed kind of that little tour around the Nevada test site.